Hey guys, tonight we travel down one of America's most legendary arteries. We're out on the blacktop of Route 66, deep in the kind of night that swallows sound and headlights alike. Imagine a single rig, a lone driver, and a neon sign that appears in the void like a promise of salvation. A place called the 24/7 Grill. It's a story that starts with a simple human need for coffee and a moment's rest, but it spirals into a mystery that freezes time itself. What's so unsettling about this place isn't a monster or a jump scare, but the chilling, quiet permanence of it all. The idea that a place can become a trap, not of walls and locks, but of time and memory. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I always find it fascinating to see how far these whispers travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The road has become a hypnotic pulse. The rumble of the diesel engine is no longer a sound you hear, but a vibration you feel deep in your bones, a constant thrum that has replaced your own heartbeat. For hours, there has been nothing but the twin beams of your headlights carving a temporary tunnel through an ocean of absolute darkness. The white lines on the asphalt appear, flash, and vanish in a rhythm so steady it feels like the world is breathing in slow, measured breaths. Your eyes are dry, gritty, and the caffeine from a gas station 6 hours back has long since worn off, leaving behind a dull ache in your temples. This is the part of the drive that truckers call the void, that stretch of empty highway between midnight and dawn, where the world seems to fall away and you're the only soul left moving through it. It's a strange state of mind, one that drivers on these lonely routes have described for decades. They call it highway hypnosis, or sometimes, more ominously, they talk about seeing the black dog, a term for the shadowy apparitions and tricks of the light that flicker at the edge of your vision when fatigue sets in. It's a documented phenomenon, a simple trick of a tired mind. But is it always? That's the question that hangs in the air out here, as thick as the scent of diesel and dust. You think about the old stories, the ones you hear at truck stops from grizzled veterans of the road. Tales of phantom headlights that follow you for miles before vanishing, of voices on the radio that aren't coming from any known station. And tales of places that shouldn't be there. There's a particularly persistent anecdote about a driver back in the 70s who swore he saw a whole town lit up and bustling just off a stretch of I-40 in Arizona. He pulled over to check his map, and when he looked back up, it was gone. Just empty desert. He never drove that route at night again. You shake your head trying to clear the cobwebs. It's just the road playing its games. But then you see it. At first, it's just a faint, fuzzy glow against the horizon. So subtle, you think it's a star that's fallen out of place. But it grows, slowly, steadily, resolving itself into a distinct, vibrant color. It's a neon sign, a warm, inviting beacon of red and blue light in the oppressive, infinite black. As you get closer, the words become clear, written in a clean, looping script. The 24/7 Grill. Good food, good folks. Below it, a smaller sign buzzes softly. Always open. A wave of profound relief washes over you so potent it almost makes you dizzy. A real place. A place with light and coffee and maybe a slice of pie that doesn't taste of cardboard. It's a sanctuary. The building itself is a classic, a long, low-slung structure with large plate glass windows and a gleaming chrome trim that catches your headlights. It looks like it was plucked right out of a postcard from a bygone era. Perfectly preserved, almost impossibly clean for a place sitting on the edge of nowhere. The gravel parking lot is neatly raked with only a few other vehicles present. A dusty pickup truck and a beautiful sea-foam green Bel Air that looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor. There's a strange stillness to it all. No flickering bulbs in the sign, no trash blowing across the lot, no hum of a generator, just the silent, steady glow. You gear down. The air breaks hissing as you pull your rig into a long, empty spot. You kill the engine, and the sudden, profound silence is almost deafening. For a moment, you just sit there, staring at the diner. It's perfect. Almost too perfect. When a place promises salvation in the middle of the void, do you ever stop to question what kind of salvation it's offering? Or do you just walk toward the light, thankful that it's there at all? You open the heavy door of your cab, and your boots crunch on the gravel as you start walking towards that warm, welcoming glow. The door swings open with a gentle chime, the kind of small, pleasant bell that belongs to a general store from a half-forgotten childhood memory. The air that greets you is a shock. Outside, it was the cool, crisp air of the high desert night. Inside, it's warm, but not stuffy. It carries a complex, layered scent, freshly brewed coffee, the savory aroma of frying bacon, and beneath it all, the clean, sharp smell of lemon polish. It smells like someone's idealized version of a perfect morning, even though it's the dead of night. You slide onto a red vinyl stool at the long, gleaming counter. The vinyl isn't cracked or faded. It's a deep, rich cherry red, cool and smooth beneath your hands. The whole place is like that, pristine. The chrome napkin dispensers are full, the sugar shakers are spotless, the linoleum floor gleams with a checkerboard pattern so clean you could eat off it. A woman emerges from the back, wiping her hands on a small white apron tied neatly around her waist. She's maybe in her late 30s, with her hair done up in a neat, sensible style that was popular decades ago. Her uniform is a pale powder blue dress, starched and perfect. She moves with a quiet efficiency that's almost mesmerizing, her soft-soled shoes making no sound on the floor. She places a heavy ceramic mug in front of you and offers a smile. It's a wide, friendly smile, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. Her eyes are a placid, distant blue, like a summer sky with no clouds. They look at you, but they seem to be focused on a point somewhere far behind you. "Coffee, hun?" she asks, her voice smooth and even, with a soft Midwestern lilt. You nod, and she turns to the pot that's perpetually brewing on a hot plate. "You look like you've been on the road for a while. Long haul?" You murmur something about coming from the east, heading for the coast. She nods, the smile never wavering. "Well, you found the right place to rest up. We're always open." She gestures with her head toward a large, neatly lettered chalkboard hanging on the wall behind her. Special of the day is meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans, best in the state. You look at the board. The letters are written in a flawless, looping cursive, the kind of penmanship no one has anymore. Special of the day, it reads, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, $1.75. The chalk is so crisp and white it seems to glow. There's no dust, no sign of erasure, no ghost of yesterday's special written underneath. It's as permanent and unchanging as the waitress's smile. This is where the first real seed of unease plants itself in your mind. You've been to 1,000 diners like this. The special is always a way to use up what's left over to move product. It changes daily. It has to. That's the whole point. But here, the special feels less like a menu item and more like a declaration, a creed. You recall a strange bit of folklore you heard from another driver once, a story about a diner that stood on an old alignment of Highway 99 in California. The driver who told the story swore that he stopped there, ordered a full steak dinner, and paid with a $20 bill. The waitress gave him exact change. He got back in his truck, drove a mile down the road, and when he checked his wallet, the change was gone. And when he glanced in his rearview mirror, the diner had vanished too. It was a memory meal, he'd called it, a meal for a ghost, paid for with ghost money. You dismissed the thought that was just a story, a way to pass the time. This place is real. The coffee is real. The heat from the mug warms your hands. "Just coffee for now, thanks," you say. The waitress's smile tightens just a fraction, a barely perceptible shift. "Of course, hon. Take your time." She turns away to serve another customer, a man in a fedora sitting a few stools down. You watch her, and a chill traces its way down your spine. Her movements are identical. The way she holds the pot, the slight tilt of her head as she pours, the exact same pleasant scripted phrase, "More coffee, hon." It's not just practiced, it's a perfect repetition, a performance. There's a theory, not one that scientists talk about, but one that paranormal investigators and folklorists whisper about. They call it residual energy, the idea that a powerful emotion or a traumatic repeated event can be imprinted onto a place, like a recording on a piece of tape. It's supposed to explain why people see apparitions performing the same mundane tasks over and over. A ghostly woman walking down a hallway, a spectral soldier pacing his post. They aren't intelligent spirits. They're just echoes, faint psychic stains left on the fabric of a location. But this doesn't feel like a faint echo. This feels sharp. It feels present. It feels alive. The stillness in this diner isn't the peace of a quiet night. It's the stillness of a photograph, the unnatural quiet of a world holding its breath. What happens when the echo is so strong it forgets it's an echo? What happens when the recording starts to believe it's real? Your gaze drifts from the waitress, scanning the other patrons scattered throughout the diner. There are maybe half a dozen of them in total. In one of the booths by the large plate glass window, a family of 4 sits. A father in a crisp, short-sleeved button-down shirt, a mother with a string of pearls around her neck, and 2 young children, a boy and a girl, both dressed in clothes that seem just a little too formal for a roadside stop. They're a picture-perfect family, a living advertisement for the American dream. The father is reading a newspaper, his brow furrowed in concentration. The mother sips delicately from a glass of water, while the children share a single towering milkshake with 2 straws. They look so normal, so idyllic, and yet there's something profoundly wrong. You watch them for a full minute, then 2. The father turns the page of his newspaper with a soft rustle of paper. The mother takes another sip of water. The boy whispers something to his sister, and she giggles, a sound that's strangely muted, as if it's coming from behind a thick pane of glass. Then you see it. The father turns the page again. It's the same page. The rustle of the paper is identical in pitch and duration. The mother raises her glass, sips, and sets it down in the exact same spot on the table where a faint ring of condensation has formed. The boy whispers, the girl giggles, the same whisper, the same giggle. It's a loop, a tiny four-person play performed on a continuous silent repeat. They aren't interacting with the world. They are a part of the scenery, as fixed and unchanging as the salt and pepper shakers on their table. A documented case from the early 1900s comes to mind. A haunting reported at a lighthouse on the coast of Michigan. The lighthouse keeper's log detailed a phantom family that would appear in the parlor on stormy nights. He wrote that they would sit by the unlit fireplace, going through the motions of a quiet evening together. The father would pretend to read a book. The mother would seem to be knitting with invisible needles, and the children would play with toys that weren't there. He wrote that he wasn't afraid of them, but he was deeply unsettled by their lack of substance. He felt that their endless, silent pantomime was slowly draining the life and sound from the very stones of the lighthouse. He was found weeks later, having abandoned his post, his last log entry a frantic scrawled question, "What if I get stuck in there quiet?" Your attention is drawn to the two other men at the counter. One is the man in the fedora, a few seats down from you. The other is a young man in a leather jacket, sitting at the far end, hunched over a plate of food. The man in the fedora stares straight ahead, nursing a cup of coffee. He periodically lifts the cup, brings it to his lips, and sets it back down without ever seeming to drink. His movements are slow, deliberate, and hypnotic. The young man in the leather jacket, however, is eating the special. He cuts a piece of meatloaf, scoops up some mashed potatoes, and brings the fork to his mouth. But he chews with an odd, disconnected motion, his jaw working mechanically. His eyes are glazed over, fixed on the counter in front of him. He is consuming the meal, but he derives no pleasure from it. There is no satisfaction in his posture, no change in his expression. Its sustenance as a function, as an eternal, joyless task. You feel a growing sense of claustrophobia. The air, which at first seemed so fresh and clean, now feels heavy and stale, recycled. The quiet hum of the diner, once comforting, now sounds like the low thrum of a machine designed for a purpose you can't begin to comprehend. There's a psychological concept known as the uncanny valley, most often applied to robotics or animation. It's the idea that when something looks and acts almost, but not exactly, like a human being, it causes a feeling of deep revulsion and unease. The almost human nature is more disturbing than something obviously artificial. This diner, and everyone in it, has fallen deep into that valley. They are perfect facsimiles of people, flawless replicas of a moment in time, and that perfection is what makes them so terrifying. You risk a glance back at the family in the booth. The father turns his page. The mother sips her water. The children share their milkshake. The loop continues, seamless and unbreakable. They are not ghosts in the traditional sense. They aren't trying to communicate. They aren't trying to scare you. They are simply there. They exist in their own private, endlessly repeating sliver of reality, and you are just a temporary observer looking in from the outside. But for how long? The thought sends a jolt of cold adrenaline through you. How fragile is the barrier between your reality and theirs? And what would it take to cross it? You turn back to your coffee, your own hands feeling strangely heavy, your own movements suddenly feeling self-conscious and rehearsed. The single chime of the door as you entered now seems less like a welcome and more like a trigger. The signal that a new actor has just walked onto a stage where the play never, ever ends. Your heart is starting to hammer against your ribs, a frantic, syncopated rhythm against the steady, monotonous hum of the diner. You need an anchor, something real to focus on, something to disprove the impossible reality that's unfolding around you. Your eyes dart around the room, searching for a detail that breaks the spell, a flaw in the perfect facade. They land on a wall near the entrance, a space adorned with the kind of memorabilia you'd expect in a place like this. Old license plates, a few framed ads for Coca-Cola and Studebaker cars, and in the center of it all, a large black and white photograph in a simple wooden frame. You slide off the stool, your boots making a loud, intrusive scuff on the pristine floor. The sound feels like a sacrilege, and for a moment you imagine all the silent patrons turning their heads in unison to stare at you. But they don't. The loop continues, undisturbed by your presence. You walk over to the wall, your footsteps feeling unnaturally loud in the quiet space. The photograph is the centerpiece, clearly a point of pride. The caption beneath it, on a small tarnished brass plaque, reads, "Grand Opening, the 24/7 Grill Staff and Friends, July 12th, 1958. Your blood runs cold. It's not a slow chill. It's an instantaneous, icy plunge. You stare at the photo, and the photo stares back at you. It's a group portrait taken from behind the counter. About a dozen people are smiling for the camera, their faces bright with the optimism of a new business venture. And you know every single one of them. There, standing proudly behind the counter, is the waitress who just served you coffee. Her smile is the same, her hair is the same, her placid blue eyes hold the same distant look. Next to her, a burly man with a white apron and a tall chef's hat is beaming. The cook, you assume, the one you haven't seen yet. And arranged on the stools and in the booths are the patrons. The family of four is there, the father with his arm around the mother, the two children sitting on his lap, all of them squinting slightly in the flashbulb's glare. The man in the fedora is there, leaning against the counter, a cigarette held loosely between his fingers. Even the young man in the leather jacket is there, though he looks younger, less weary, a cocky smirk on his face. Everyone currently in the diner is in the photograph. Every single one. It's not just a resemblance, it's them. They haven't aged a day since July 12th, 1958. This isn't a place that's been preserved, it's a place that's been petrified. The moment captured in that photograph wasn't just a moment, it was the last moment. There's a well-documented psychological phenomenon called inattentional blindness, where a person fails to notice something completely unexpected because their attention is engaged on another task. It's why people don't see the person in the gorilla suit walking through the basketball game in the famous experiment. You realize with a jolt that you've been experiencing a form of it. You saw the people, you saw the decor, but your brain, conditioned by a lifetime of logical expectations, refused to assemble the pieces. It filtered out the impossibility. Until now. Until the photograph forced you to see. The proof was hanging on the wall the entire time, a quiet testament to the diner's true nature. You think of an unsettling anecdote from a paranormal investigation of an old hotel in Colorado. The investigators kept hearing the faint sound of a party, of laughter and music, coming from a sealed-off ballroom. They finally managed to get a camera into the room, and the footage they captured was chilling. It showed a group of people in Victorian dress dancing and celebrating, but the truly disturbing part was a detail they noticed on the wall in the footage, a portrait of the hotel's founding family. The people in the portrait were the exact same people dancing in the ballroom, frozen in the same poses. The investigators theorized that the room wasn't just haunted by the people, it was haunted by the painting itself, which was somehow projecting its captured moment into the space around it. You look from the photograph back to the living, breathing tableau in the diner. The waitress glides by with a coffee pot. The family continues their silent pantomime. The man in the fedora raises his empty cup. They aren't ghosts of people. They are ghosts of a photograph. They are living inside the memory of a single flashbulb, a captured instant that has expanded to fill every second of every hour of every day since 1958. The always open sign outside isn't a promise of service. It's a statement of their condition. They are always open because they can never close. They are trapped in their grand opening forever. The question that echoes in the silent space of your mind is no longer about what this place is, but why. What could happen to trap a dozen souls in a single photograph? Was it a blessing or a curse? Were they celebrating the beginning of a dream, completely unaware that it was also the end of everything else? The photograph offers no answers. It just hangs there, a silent, smiling black and white portal to an eternal, unchanging present. And as you stand before it, you feel a terrifying sense of vertigo, as if the floor is tilting and you're slowly sliding toward the frame, about to be pulled into the picture with them. A cold sweat breaks out on your forehead. The knowledge from the photograph has fundamentally altered your perception of the room. Before, it was unsettling. Now it's actively hostile. Every mundane detail, every quiet movement feels like a piece of a meticulously constructed trap. You have to talk to someone. You need to break the script to force a reaction that isn't part of the endless loop. You turn away from the chilling photograph and walk back to the counter, your legs feeling stiff and heavy, as if you're wading through water. You slide back onto the stool, the vinyl cool against your skin. The waitress, whom you now know as the smiling woman from 1958, is wiping down the already immaculate countertop with a damp cloth. Her movements are fluid, rhythmic, and utterly predictable. You clear your throat. The sound is rough, dry. "Excuse me," you say, your voice louder than you intended. She stops her wiping motion and turns to you, that same placid, unchanging smile fixed on her face. Her blue eyes are vacant, but they are focused directly on you. "Yes, hon? Changed your mind about that meatloaf?" "The picture," you say, your voice dropping to a near whisper. You nod towards the wall, the one on the wall, from the grand opening. A flicker. For the briefest fraction of a second, you see something in her eyes. Not confusion, not surprise. something else, a deep, ancient weariness, a sadness so profound it feels like a physical weight. But just as quickly as it appeared, it's gone, papered over once again by the practiced, pleasant smile. "Oh, that old thing," she says, her voice light and airy, a perfect imitation of casual nostalgia. Yes, that was a wonderful day. We were all so excited, the start of something special. Her response is flawless. It's exactly what a normal waitress would say, but her words are too smooth, too polished. They are part of the script. You have to push harder. "You're in it," you state, not as a question, but as an accusation. "You're in the picture, you and everyone else here." The smile doesn't falter. "Time flies, doesn't it?" she says, turning to straighten the sugar shakers. It's a masterful deflection, a conversational dead end. She's not ignoring you. She's absorbing your questions into the fabric of the scene, neutralizing them with pleasantries. You realize with a dawning horror that you can't shock her. You can't break her. The loop is designed to be impervious. It has had decades to perfect its defenses. Any external input, any question that threatens the integrity of the scene, is simply rerouted, explained away by a pre-written line of dialogue. This strange circular conversation reminds you of a documented psychological case involving a man who suffered from a rare form of amnesia. He believed he was still a young man living in the 1940s. Doctors and family members would try to confront him with modern newspapers or technology, but his mind would invent elaborate on-the-spot explanations. A television was a new kind of radio with a picture box. A jet plane was an experimental government rocket. His reality was so robust, so internally consistent, that it could absorb any contradictory evidence and make it part of his world. He wasn't lying. He was simply incapable of seeing the truth. The waitress is the same. Her reality is July 12th, 1958, and she will bend the universe to fit that truth. You decide to try one last time, your voice laced with a desperation you can no longer hide. "What's your name?" you ask. "What's the date today?" She turns back to you, her head tilted slightly as if you've asked a charmingly silly question. "Why, it's Betty," she says, tapping a finger lightly on her chest. "And it's the best day of my life. It's our grand opening." She gestures around the pristine diner. "Can't you tell? Everything is perfect." Her words hang in the air, thick and final. Everything is perfect. It's not an opinion. It's the fundamental law of this place. You've been trying to have a conversation with a ghost, but you were wrong. A ghost is a remnant of a person. Betty is not a remnant. She is a complete, self-contained, and perfectly functioning program. There is no one inside to appeal to. There's a chilling local legend from rural Pennsylvania about a crossroads spirit. The legend says that if you stand at a certain crossroads at midnight, a figure will appear and offer you a deal. But the trick is, the spirit can only communicate using words and phrases it has overheard from travelers over the last 100 years. It can assemble sentences that sound coherent, but it has no understanding of their meaning. It's just mimicking human interaction. Talking to Betty feels exactly like that. You are talking to a recording that has learned to talk back. You slump back against the stool, defeated. The energy drains out of you, replaced by a profound sense of isolation. You are a real, living person in a room full of echoes, and you are utterly, completely alone. Your attempts to break the illusion have only reinforced its power. You are not a customer to her. You are not a threat. You are just a new, unexpected variable that her programming has now successfully accounted for. The question that settles in your stomach like a cold, heavy stone is terrifying. If the script can adapt to your questions, can it adapt to your presence in other ways? What happens if you stay too long? Does the play write a new part for you? You look at your half-full coffee cup on the counter and suddenly feel an overwhelming urge to get as far away from it and this place as you possibly can. Defeated, you push your coffee cup away and stand up, the legs of the stool scraping against the floor. The sound is harsh, alien. You need to get back to your truck, back to the familiar rumble of the engine, back to a world that moves forward. As you turn towards the door, your mind races, trying to place this diner within the vast, haunted landscape of American folklore. Route 66, the Mother Road, isn't just a stretch of asphalt. It's a repository of dreams, a graveyard of forgotten towns, and a conduit for stories. Every mile of its original decommissioned path is steeped in a potent blend of nostalgia and loss. This place, the 24/7 Grill, feels like the physical embodiment of that duality. You think about the countless stories tied to this legendary highway. There's the tale of the ghost light of Joplin, Missouri, a mysterious glowing orb that bobs and weaves down a lonely stretch of road, said to be the lantern of a murdered miner forever searching for his lost family. There are stories of phantom cars, classic hot rods from the 50s and 60s that race drivers in the dead of night, only to vanish into thin air at the county line. These are the classic transient ghosts, fleeting encounters, apparitions that pass through your reality for a moment and are gone. But this diner is different. It's not a passing ghost. It's a permanent fixture, a supernatural landmark. It's not just haunting the road. It has become a part of it, a destination for the lost. There's a particularly grim and documented account from the Great Depression, a story that feels uncomfortably close to your current situation. It concerns a string of disappearances along a desolate section of the route in western Arizona. Families heading to California in search of a better life would be seen stopping at a ramshackle roadside camp for water and rest, and then would simply vanish. No trace of them or their vehicles was ever found. The official explanation was that they likely broke down in the desert and succumbed to the elements. But a local legend offered a more sinister theory. It spoke of the camp being a hungry place, a spot on the earth that consumed hope, and that the families weren't just gone, they were erased, their dreams and futures devoured by the desperate spirit of the land itself. Looking around the pristine, smiling prison of the 24/7 Grill, you can't help but feel that you've stumbled into one of those hungry places. It doesn't consume flesh and bone, but something far more fundamental: time. It feeds on moments. The family in the booth, the man in the fedora, Betty the waitress, they were travelers, just like you. They stopped for a meal, for a cup of coffee, for a brief respite from the long road, and they never left. The diner offered them a perfect moment, a grand opening filled with hope and promise, and then it trapped them inside it forever. They are not just ghosts. They are exhibits in a museum of lost futures. The psychological toll on someone who stumbles into a place like this and escapes is a subject of its own dark folklore. You remember an anecdote you read on an online forum for long-haul truckers. A driver claimed he had stopped at a diner just like this one, somewhere in New Mexico. He said he spent what felt like 10 minutes inside, had a coffee, and left. But when he got back to his truck, the sun was rising. He had lost 6 hours. His dispatcher was furious, his delivery was late, and he couldn't explain the missing time. But the worst part, he wrote, was the feeling that followed him for years. He said that sometimes, when he was driving at night, he would smell the scent of frying bacon and lemon polish in his cab. He'd hear the faint, muted giggle of a child. He felt like a part of the diner had latched on to him, a psychic parasite that was slowly feeding on his own sense of time. He eventually quit driving altogether. Is that what happens when you leave? Does a piece of this place go with you? Does the perfect, unchanging loop try to replicate itself in your own mind? The thought is more terrifying than any ghost. The idea that you could escape the physical building but never truly leave its influence behind is a prison of a different, more insidious kind. You reach for the chrome handle of the front door, your palms sweating. The metal is cool and solid beneath your hand. For a terrifying second, you wonder if it will even open. Will the door, like everything else in this place, refuse to acknowledge your desire to leave? Will it be just another part of the set, a prop that has no real function? With a deep breath, you push. You have to know. The question hanging in the silent, fragrant air is no longer just about the nature of this place, but about its reach. Does its power end at the threshold, or does it cling to you like the dust of the road, following you into the dawn? The door opens. The small bell chimes, the same pleasant, welcoming sound it made when you arrived. It feels different now, not a welcome, but a release, a final mocking note from the performance you're trying to flee. You practically stumble out into the night air, your lungs gasping for the cold, real atmosphere of the desert. The contrast is jarring. The warm, scented, artificially still air of the diner is replaced by the scent of sagebrush and the vast, empty silence of the night. You turn back to look at the diner, half expecting it to have vanished, to have been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But it's still there. The neon sign glows with the same steady, unwavering intensity. Through the large plate glass windows, you can see the scene continuing, unaltered by your departure. Betty is wiping the counter. The family is locked in their loop. It's a perfect, hermetically sealed bubble of 1958, humming along in the middle of the modern world. You hurry towards your rig, the crunch of your boots on the gravel, a comforting, solid sound. You just want to climb into the cab, turn the key, and feel the familiar rumble of the engine chasing away the unnatural quiet. As you swing yourself up into the driver's seat, your eyes fall on the dashboard clock. It's a digital display glowing with bright red numbers, and the numbers read 2:22. You frown. That's about the time you think you pulled in. You check your watch. It's an old-school analog, a reliable timepiece you've had for years. The hands are perfectly still. The second hand is frozen, pointing directly at the 12. The watch has stopped. A cold knot of dread tightens in your gut. You fumble for your phone, pulling it from your pocket. The screen is black. You press the power button. Nothing. You press it again, holding it down. The screen remains lifeless, a dark, reflective void. It was fully charged an hour ago. Every single one of your timekeeping devices has failed. Your gaze is drawn, against your will, back to the diner, and through the window you see it, hanging on the wall behind the counter, right next to the chalkboard with its unchanging special. It's a large, round clock, a classic mid-century design with a sweeping second hand. And its hands are pointed to the exact same time as your dead watch, 2:22. The hands on the diner clock are not moving. Of course they aren't. Why would they? In a place where time itself is broken, why would a clock be allowed to function? The moment of the grand opening wasn't just a day. It was a specific minute. The moment the flashbulb went off for that photograph, the moment the universe inside that building was captured and held, was 2:22 in the morning on July 12, 1958. This isn't just a residual haunting. It's a temporal anomaly, a splinter in the timeline. There are numerous documented accounts in paranormal research of time slips, moments where individuals report finding themselves momentarily transported to the past or future. A famous case from 1901, the Moberly-Jourdain incident, involved two English academics who claimed that while visiting the Petit Trianon at the Palace of Versailles, they slipped into a pre-revolutionary version of the grounds, seeing and even interacting with figures from the court of Marie Antoinette. They described the atmosphere as being unnatural and eerie, as if they were walking through a memory. They, however, returned. The slip was temporary. What if this diner isn't a temporary slip? What if it's a permanent fracture? You think about a deeply unsettling local legend from the Deep South, the story of the house that missed the storm. The tale goes that a massive hurricane wiped a small coastal town completely off the map in the early 20th century. When rescuers arrived, the entire town was gone, except for a single, perfectly untouched Victorian house. Inside, a family was found sitting around their dining room table, dead, with no signs of injury. The clocks in the house were all stopped at the exact moment the storm made landfall. The legend says the family was so terrified of the coming storm that their collective fear somehow unplugged their home from the flow of time, saving them from the hurricane, but trapping them in their final fearful moment forever. This diner feels like that house. Something happened here at 2:22 a.m., something so powerful, so definitive, that it severed this small patch of ground from the rest of reality. The frozen clock on the wall isn't just a broken piece of machinery. It's the anchor point. It's the epicenter of the temporal blast zone. Your watch and your phone didn't just break. When you stepped inside the diner, you stepped into its field of influence, a bubble where the normal laws of physics and time ceased to apply. They didn't stop working, they simply stopped. The question that now screams in your mind is a terrifying one. You've left the diner, but has its influence left you? Your watch has stopped. Your phone is dead. Are you truly outside the bubble, or have you just moved into an outer, less concentrated layer of it? Are you driving away from the anomaly, or are you taking a piece of its timeless frozen reality with you? You frantically turn the key in the ignition. The engine sputters, catches, and then roars to life. The sound is the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. The dashboard clock flickers and resets, flashing 12:00, 12:00, 12:00. It's alive, but it has lost its memory of the real time. You haven't escaped unscathed. You've lost time. and you have a terrible sinking feeling that the diner has it now. The engine is running, a powerful, reassuring tremor that vibrates through the driver's seat. Your first instinct is to slam the truck into gear and peel out of the gravel lot, leaving a cloud of dust and the cursed diner in your rearview mirror. But you hesitate. A morbid, chilling curiosity holds you in place. You look back through the pristine window of the 24/7 grill, your eyes drawn to the man at the far end of the counter, the young guy in the leather jacket, the one from the 1958 photograph who looked so full of life. He's still there, hunched over his plate. He's eating the special, the meatloaf, the mashed potatoes, the green beans. And as you watch him, you begin to understand. He lifts his fork with the same mechanical, joyless motion. A small piece of meatloaf, a dab of potatoes. He brings it to his mouth, chews with a vacant expression, and swallows. Then he does it again, and again. The plate in front of him is full. It has been full since you first saw him, and you realize with a sickening certainty that it will always be full. He is not eating to satisfy hunger. He is not eating for pleasure. He is performing the act of eating. The meal is not being consumed. It is being reenacted just like every other action in this place. It's a part of the loop. The special of the day never changes because the day never changes. The meal is as eternal as the moment it's served in. This observation brings to mind the ancient concept of the sin eater, a figure from Welsh and English folklore. A sin eater was a person who, through a ritual meal, would take on the sins of a deceased person, thus allowing the soul to find peace. The meal was typically bread and ale, consumed over the corpse. The act of eating was believed to absorb the spiritual corruption of the departed. It was a transfer of a spiritual burden through physical consumption. This practice, though rooted in folk belief, highlights a deep-seated human idea that eating can be more than a biological necessity. It can be a powerful, metaphysical act. Watching the man in the leather jacket, you see a horrifying inversion of that concept. He is not a sin eater, he is a time eater, or perhaps the meal is eating his time. The food isn't meant for nourishment, it's an anchor. It's the one tangible physical element in this ghostly tableau. While the others are trapped by their actions, wiping a counter, reading a paper, sipping a drink, he is trapped by consumption. The act of eating the special might be the very thing that binds these spirits, or these temporal echoes, to this physical location. It's the perpetual, never-ending sacrament that fuels their strange, timeless existence. The meal doesn't sustain their bodies, it sustains their prison. There's a strange, unsettling anecdote often shared among nurses who work in palliative care. It's the phenomenon of the last meal request. Often, a patient who has been unable to eat for days will suddenly, in their final hours, ask for a specific, often elaborate meal from their youth. Nurses have noted that sometimes after this request is fulfilled, the patient seems to hold on, lasting for hours or even days longer than medically expected, as if the taste, the memory, the very substance of that meal is giving them one last tether to the world of the living. It's a purely anecdotal observation, of course, but it speaks to the profound psychological and perhaps even spiritual connection between food, memory, and life itself. The special in this diner feels like a weaponized version of that phenomenon. It's a memory meal designed not to let go. You watch the man take another bite. The fork rises and falls with the unthinking precision of a piston, and a terrifying question begins to form in your mind. What would have happened if you had ordered the meatloaf? Betty, the waitress, had offered it to you twice. It was a casual question, a piece of the script, but was it also an invitation? Was she, consciously or not, offering you a seat at their eternal table? If you had eaten the food, would you have become part of the loop? Would you have been absorbed into the scene, another silent patron, forever raising a fork to your lips, your own plate never emptying, your own future devoured by a single, unchanging meal? The thought sends a fresh wave of nausea through you. The coffee you drank sits sourly in your stomach. Was it safe? Was the coffee just a prop? Or was it a milder form of the anchor, a way to prime you, to slowly acclimate you to the diner's timeless state? You remember the momentary feeling of comfort and relief that washed over you when you first walked in. Was that genuine, or was it an effect of the place itself? A psychic lure to make you lower your guard, to make you feel safe enough to sit down and order the special? The entire diner is a perfectly designed trap, and the bait is a simple, comforting plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. You finally understand the true price of the meal wasn't the $1.75 on the chalkboard. The price was everything that came after. The price was forever. You throw the truck into reverse, the gears grinding in protest. The rig lurches backward, and you swing the wheel hard, turning your headlights away from the mesmerizing, horrifying window of the diner. As you straighten out, ready to flee, a sound cuts through the night. It's faint at first, barely audible over the idle of your engine, but it's unmistakable. It's music. A tinny, warbling melody is drifting from the diner, a classic rock and roll tune from a bygone era. It's the sound of a jukebox, the kind of rich, slightly distorted audio that can only come from a vintage Wurlitzer. You pause, one hand on the gearshift, straining to listen. The song is slow, a melancholy ballad carried by a soulful voice and a simple, repetitive guitar riff. The sound is both beautiful and deeply sorrowful. It's a love song, but it's one filled with a sense of longing and inevitable loss. You realize with a jolt that this music must have been playing the whole time you were inside, but it was so much a part of the background, so perfectly integrated into the atmosphere, that you didn't consciously register it. It was just another layer of the intricate, timeless set design. Now, out here in the cold silence of the desert, it sounds like a funeral dirge. You strain to make out the lyrics, fragments of which float towards you on the still night air. Meet you by the river, under the pale moonlight, one last dance before you go. The words are simple, almost cliché, but in this context, they take on a terrifying new meaning. This isn't just a song playing on a jukebox. It's the diner's anthem. It's the soundtrack to their eternal, looping tragedy. The song isn't just background music. It's the narrative. It's telling the story of what happened here. There's a well-known paranormal theory called the stone tape theory. It posits that inanimate materials, particularly stone, can absorb and record strong emotional events, which can then be replayed under certain conditions, appearing as apparitions or sounds. It's a way of explaining residual hauntings as natural, if poorly understood, phenomena. This jukebox feels like a variation of that theory. What if it wasn't stone that recorded the event, but vinyl? What if the intense emotion of that night in 1958 was somehow imprinted directly onto the grooves of that one specific record? The jukebox isn't just playing a song, it's replaying a memory. The needle isn't just tracing a groove, it's tracing the scar of a tragedy. A chilling local legend from Memphis, Tennessee comes to mind. It's about a specific record, an obscure blues single from the 1930s that is said to be cursed. The legend says the singer sold his soul to the devil for his talent, and his final tortured moments were somehow captured in the recording session. The story goes that anyone who listens to the full song from beginning to end will be haunted by the singer's ghost, or worse, will suffer the same fate. The record supposedly has a habit of showing up in dusty pawn shops and flea markets, waiting for its next victim. It's a classic piece of American folklore, a cautionary tale about the power of music and the darkness it can sometimes contain. The song from the diner's jukebox has that same malevolent quality. It's not just a sad song. It feels dangerous. It's the siren's call, the haunting refrain that keeps the spirits tethered to their fate. As long as that song plays, the dance can never end. The loop can never be broken. The lyrics, "One last dance before you go," are the cruelest of ironies. For the people inside that diner, there is no "before you go." There is only the dance, an endless, silent waltz with memory. The song reaches its crescendo, a mournful saxophone solo that seems to weep and cry, and then it fades out. For a moment, there is silence. You think it's over, but then you hear it. The soft, mechanical clunk of the jukebox mechanism, the whisper of the robotic arm lifting, and then the gentle hiss as the needle drops onto the record again. The same simple, repetitive guitar riff begins. The song has started over. Of course it has. The jukebox, like everything else in this place, is trapped in its own loop. It only has one song to play for all of eternity. A new and horrifying question surfaces in your mind. Is the song trapping the spirits, or were the spirits and their tragedy so powerful that they trapped the song? Which is the cause, and which is the effect? Is the jukebox the prison's engine, or is it just another prisoner, forced to sing the same sad story over and over? It's a chicken and egg question from the depths of hell. You don't wait to hear the lyrics again. You slam the truck into gear, the tires spinning on the loose gravel, and you pull out onto the empty highway, pushing the accelerator to the floor. You need to put as much distance as possible between you and that haunting, never-ending refrain. The rig barrels down the empty highway, the engine a deafening roar that you welcome as a shield against the silence. You push it faster than you should, the trailer swaying slightly behind you. Your eyes are fixed on the rearview mirror, expecting to see the red and blue glow of the 24/7 grill shrink and finally disappear into the blackness. But it doesn't. You drive for what feels like a minute, then two, covering at least a couple of miles. You glance in the mirror again. The neon sign is still there, just as bright, just as close, as if you hadn't moved at all. It's hanging in the darkness behind you, a persistent, unblinking eye. Panic, cold and sharp, cuts through your adrenaline. You press harder on the accelerator. The diesel engine screams in protest. The speedometer needle climbs. 5 miles, 10. The road is a straight, featureless line, and there's nothing to mark your progress except the humming of the tires on the asphalt. You look in the mirror again. The diner is still there. It hasn't receded. It hasn't gotten smaller. It's pacing you, keeping a fixed distance, a silent, glowing predator stalking you through the night. The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. You haven't left. You're out of the parking lot. You're on the highway, but you are still within its grip. The trap is bigger than the building. You yank the wheel, pulling the truck onto the shoulder of the road. The rig shudders to a stop, dust billowing up around it. You kill the engine, and the sudden silence is terrifying. The neon sign of the diner is still visible behind you, impossibly close. You feel a wave of pure, primal claustrophobia. The open desert, which moments ago felt vast and liberating, now feels like the walls of a room. You are not on a public highway. You are on a treadmill, a circular track that leads nowhere. You throw open the cab door and jump to the ground, your mind racing. You think about the front door of the diner, how you hesitated before pushing it, wondering if it would open. You had been so focused on that one physical barrier. It never occurred to you that the real door wasn't the one made of wood and glass. This experience mirrors a specific type of haunting often reported in what paranormal investigators call vortex locations. These are places like the Bermuda Triangle or Oregon's House of Mystery, where the laws of physics and perception are said to be warped. People who visit these sites often report feeling disoriented, experiencing strange gravitational pulls, and even seeing objects appear to change size or position. A common documented account from visitors to the Oregon Vortex is the feeling of being stuck. They describe walking down a path for several minutes only to find themselves back where they started, as if the landscape itself is folded in on itself, preventing them from leaving. It's not a malevolent force. It's a fundamental distortion of space. You think of a deeply unsettling bit of American folklore, a cautionary tale for travelers known as the Devil's Toll Road. The story varies from state to state, but the core elements are the same. A traveler finds themselves on a lonely, unmarked road at night. They drive for hours, but the scenery never changes. They pass the same strange, gnarled tree or the same dilapidated barn over and over again. They can't turn around, as any side road they take mysteriously leads them back to the main toll road. The only way to get off, the legend says, is to pay the toll. But there is no toll booth. The toll is something personal, something you have to leave behind on the side of the road. A cherished memory, a year of your life, your sense of direction. Only then will the road release you. This highway feels like that toll road. The diner is the anchor, and the stretch of road you're on is its domain. You're trapped in a localized reality bubble, and the harder you try to drive away from its center, the more the space around you warps to keep you inside. You are no longer in Arizona or New Mexico or wherever you thought you were. You are in the diner's territory, and the normal rules of geography no longer apply. You look back at your truck, the familiar solid shape of it. It suddenly seems like a foreign object, a piece of the real world that has strayed into a dream, and the dream is trying to reject it. The terrifying question that rises in your mind is, what exactly is the toll here? The legend spoke of leaving something behind. What does this place want from you? It offered you the special, the meal that anchors its inhabitants. Is that the only way out? To go back and accept the invitation? To trade your seat behind the wheel for a stool at the counter? The idea is so horrifying, so final, that it galvanizes you. Number, you will not go back. There has to be another way. You stare down the empty black ribbon of asphalt stretching out in front of you. The diner is behind you. The unknown is ahead. But if driving away from it doesn't work, what choice do you have left? The logic is insane, but it's the only thing that makes sense in this twisted reality. You have to drive towards it. You have to drive back past the diner and see what happens when you meet the illusion head on. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drum beat in the oppressive silence. The decision to turn back, to drive towards the very thing you're desperate to escape, feels like an act of madness. But logic has no place here. The laws of this stretch of road are written by the diner, and straightforward escape has failed. You climb back into the cab, the familiar scent of worn leather and stale coffee, a small, fleeting comfort. You start the engine, the roar momentarily drowning out the sound of your own ragged breathing. Instead of putting the truck in gear, you sit for a moment, a desperate idea forming in your mind. You reach for the CB radio. You grab the microphone, the coiled cord cool and solid in your shaking hand. You switch it to the emergency channel, channel 9. Breaker 19, breaker 19, you say, your voice cracking. Is anyone out there? I'm on Route 66, somewhere east of nothing. I need assistance. Is there anybody on this channel? Over. The only reply is a wash of static, a harsh, empty hiss that seems to mock your attempt to reach the outside world. You try again, your voice rising in pitch. This is Rooster Cogburn calling for any driver on the road. I'm in a situation here. There's a diner, the 24/7 grill. Do not stop here. I repeat, do not stop. It's a trap. Can anyone read me? Over. The static continues for a few seconds, and then something cuts through it. It's a voice. It's faint, distorted, buried under layers of noise, but it's there. It's a man's voice, calm and measured, but with an undercurrent of panic. Get off the road, the voice crackles. Can't see the light. It's pulling me in. Tell my wife. The transmission dissolves into a burst of static and then dies, leaving only the empty hiss behind. The voice sounded old, the transmission quality like something from a war movie. It wasn't a modern, clear CB signal. It was an echo, a ghost on the airwaves. This phenomenon, known as electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, is a cornerstone of modern paranormal investigation. It's the act of capturing voices of unknown origin on electronic recording devices. Investigators have recorded these disembodied voices on audio recorders, radio frequencies, and even video. Often, these voices are fragmented, single words or short phrases that seem to respond to questions. Skeptics attribute it to auditory pareidolia, the brain finding patterns in random noise or stray radio signals. But for those who have heard a clear, intelligent response come out of pure static, it's proof that something can communicate from beyond our perception. The voice you just heard wasn't just random noise. It was a warning from someone else who fell into this trap. It reminds you of a strange and persistent piece of folklore from the world of amateur radio operators. The legend of the ghost frequency. The story goes that there's a specific shortwave frequency that, on certain nights, will broadcast signals from the past. Hams have claimed to hear everything from live news reports from D-Day to panicked Russian transmissions from the early days of the space race. The most chilling story is of an operator who claimed to have a full conversation with a pilot, guiding him through a storm, only to later discover that the pilot's call sign belonged to a plane that had vanished over the Pacific in the 1950s. The theory is that under the right atmospheric conditions, the ionosphere can occasionally trap and reflect old radio waves, allowing them to be heard decades later. Were you just listening to a ghost? Or was the diner's temporal field so powerful that it was catching and replaying old distress calls from other truckers who had stumbled into its web? The voice on the radio solidifies your resolve. Turning back isn't just an option, it's the only path. That faint, ghostly broadcast was a message from another victim, another soul snared by the diner's light. It was a warning meant for others, a final, desperate attempt to keep someone else from suffering the same fate. Maybe the only way to honor that warning is to break the cycle. You turn the truck around, a difficult multi-point turn on the narrow two-lane road. The headlights sweep across the empty desert, illuminating sagebrush and sand, a world that should be real but feels like a painted backdrop. Finally, you are facing the diner again. It sits there in the distance, its neon glow a malevolent jewel in the darkness. It looks exactly the same. It hasn't changed. It hasn't reacted. It's waiting. The question that propels you forward is one of desperate hope. If you can't escape the diner's influence by driving away, can you perhaps overload it by driving towards it? What happens to an illusion when you refuse to believe in it, when you charge directly at it? Does it shatter, or does it swallow you whole? You don't know the answer, but you know you can't stay here, stranded on this phantom road, waiting for your fuel to run out, waiting to become another desperate, static-laced voice calling out for help that will never come. You put the truck in gear and start driving, slowly at first, then gaining speed. Your headlights aim directly at the heart of the impossible, unchanging light. The rig picks up speed, the tires humming a rising, frantic tune on the blacktop. You are driving directly towards the diner, a moth flying not toward the flame, but towards the memory of a flame that has been burning for over 60 years. The neon sign grows larger in your windshield, its red and blue glow filling the cab, painting your face in its spectral light. The closer you get, the more solid and real it seems. The illusion is not wavering. It's hardening, daring you to challenge it. Your knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Every instinct is screaming at you to turn, to swerve, to do anything but continue on this collision course with a place that shouldn't exist. As you get closer, your headlights illuminate the front of the building in stark detail. The chrome gleams. The glass is spotless. The neatly raked gravel of the parking lot is undisturbed. And then you see a figure. The front door of the diner opens and a man steps out, framed for a moment in the warm yellow light from within. He is a large, broad-shouldered man, wearing a tall white chef's hat and a simple white apron, just like the man in the 1958 photograph. It's the cook, the one person you hadn't seen inside. He steps out onto the gravel and simply stands there, his arms crossed over his chest, waiting for you. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look threatening. His expression is one of calm, stoic resignation. He has the same ancient weariness in his eyes that you glimpsed for a moment in Betty's, but his gaze is different. It's not vacant or looped. It's intelligent. It's aware. He is looking directly at you, at the driver of the truck, and his eyes hold a profound, chilling understanding. He knows what this place is. He knows what you've seen. And his presence there, standing guard, changes everything. The other figures in the dino were actors, puppets in a play. This man feels like the director. He's not just part of the loop, he's the keeper of the loop. This figure, the stoic, knowing guardian of a haunted place, is a powerful archetype in paranormal folklore. Think of the groundskeeper at a haunted cemetery who warns teenagers not to stay past dark, or the old caretaker of a historic house who seems to know every ghost by name. These figures are often portrayed as being part of the haunting themselves, a spirit bound to the location not by tragedy, but by duty. There's a documented historical account from a castle in Scotland of a spirit known as the Black Watcher. For centuries, visitors have reported seeing the spectral figure of a Highlander in an old regimental uniform, silently observing them from the castle ramparts. He never interacts, never threatens. He just watches, a silent, eternal sentinel. The cook has the same energy. He is the warden of this temporal prison. An obscure local legend from the Louisiana bayous comes to mind, the story of Le Gardien du Feu. The legend speaks of a mysterious silent man who appears near the Feu Follet, the strange ghostly lights that dance over the swamp. Locals claim he is not a ghost, but something older, a spirit of the place itself, whose job is to ensure the lost souls drawn to the light do not wander off and bother the living. He doesn't help the spirits move on. He simply keeps them contained, maintaining the grim supernatural balance. The cook, standing there under the neon glow, feels like that guardian. He is not there to keep you out. He is there to keep them in, and perhaps to ensure that those who are meant to join them do. His calm, knowing gaze is the most terrifying thing you have seen all night. It shatters your last hope that this was all a random, mindless phenomenon. It's not. There is an intelligence here, a purpose. The diner isn't just a glitch in time, it's a managed system. The cook's presence implies rules, a structure. He is the final piece of the puzzle. Betty is the lure, the friendly face that welcomes you in. The meal is the anchor that holds you. The music is the atmosphere that lulls you. And the cook? The cook is the warden who ensures the prison remains secure. What does he want? Why has he finally revealed himself? Is it because you're attempting to break the rules, to challenge the established order of the place by driving back towards it? Perhaps your act of defiance has forced the system to reveal its administrator. The question that paralyzes you is what his role truly is. Is he a benevolent warden, trying to protect the outside world from the anomaly he oversees? Or is he a malevolent jailer, actively seeking new inmates to populate his timeless prison? His expression gives nothing away. It is a mask of infinite patience, of someone who has performed the same task for decades and is prepared to perform it for decades more. You are feet from the entrance to the parking lot now. You have to make a choice. Do you stop? Do you swerve and try to speed past him on the highway, or do you hold your course, a direct challenge to the silent watching man who holds the keys to this eternal neon-lit hell? Your foot hovers over the brake. The cook remains motionless, a statue carved from moonlight and regret, his gaze pinning you in place. In that split second, as a history of the diner and the folklore of the road churn in your mind, a new and terrible clarity dawns. The song from the jukebox, the frozen clock, the photograph on the wall, they aren't just clues to the nature of the trap. They are pieces of a story that happened right here on this patch of earth at 2:22 in the morning on July 12th, 1958. You are not just in a haunted place. You are at the scene of the crime, moments after it happened, and the evidence is all around you. You suddenly see it all, a cascade of imagined black and white snapshots. The grand opening, the diner, is full of life, not the pale imitation you witnessed, but real vibrant life. Betty is laughing, a genuine, unscripted laugh. The family in the booth is tired from their travels, but excited for a new life out west. The young man in the leather jacket, maybe his name was James or Johnny, is trying to impress Betty, playing a song for her on the brand-new jukebox. It's a song about meeting his girl, about having one last dance. The man in the fedora is a traveling salesman just passing through, nursing a cup of coffee before heading back onto the dark road. The cook is in the back, proud of his gleaming new kitchen, the smell of his signature meatloaf filling the air. It's a perfect moment of American optimism, snapshot of the dream. But something went wrong, horribly wrong. The clock on the wall points to 2:22 a.m. That's the witching hour for truckers, the time when fatigue is at its peak and the roads are at their most dangerous. A single catastrophic event is the only thing that could explain the sheer power of this place. A car crash, a horrific, violent, instantaneous end. There's a documented historical event that serves as a chilling parallel, the 1955 Le Mans disaster in France. During the famous 24-hour race, a car crashed and flew into the crowd, killing the driver and over 80 spectators. The event was so traumatic, so shocking, that it was seared into the collective consciousness of the racing world. For years after, people who visited the site reported hearing the phantom sounds of the crash, the roar of the engines, the screams of the crowd. They described it as a scar on the air, a moment of such intense violence and emotion that it was permanently imprinted on the location. The 24/7 grill feels like the site of a similar scar, smaller in scale, but just as absolute in its finality. You think of the young man in the leather jacket and his song, "One Last Dance Before You Go." It wasn't a metaphor. He was leaving. Maybe he was a local boy, heading off to the army or to a new job, and this was his last night in town. The man in the fedora, the salesman, was tired. He gets in his car. The family packs up their kids, ready to continue their long journey. Maybe two cars leave the pristine gravel lot at the same time at 2:21 a.m. One turns left, one turns right. And out on the dark, unlit highway, a third vehicle, a speeding truck perhaps, its driver asleep at the wheel, is bearing down on the intersection. At 2:22 a.m., all their stories, all their futures, collide in a single, blinding flash of twisted metal and shattered glass. An old, dark piece of folklore from New England, the tale of the sudden church, springs to mind. The legend says that if a person dies a sudden, violent, and unprepared death, their soul, in its confusion, will instinctively recreate the last safe, happy place it knew. A fisherman drowned in a storm might haunt his favorite tavern. A soldier killed in battle might haunt his childhood home. The spirits aren't haunting the place of their death, but the place of their last peaceful moment. What if the diner is a sudden church? What if in the chaotic, terrifying moment of the crash, the collective consciousness of all the victims, Betty, the family, the salesman, the boy in the jacket, lashed out and grabbed onto the last happy memory they all shared, the grand opening, just minutes before. They weren't just trapped by the event. In a desperate act of psychic self-preservation, they created the trap themselves. This is the origin story. This is the accident. The diner isn't a malevolent entity that captured them. The diner is them. It is a shared dying dream, projected onto the physical location with such force that it tore a hole in the fabric of time. The pristine condition of the building, the unchanging special, the looping music, it's all their collective memory, holding the illusion together. The cook, standing before you, was he part of it? Maybe he was the only one who survived the initial crash, living for a few moments longer, long enough to see what was happening, long enough to understand. Is his role as warden a self-imposed penance? A duty to watch over his lost friends and customers for eternity? The question of his motive remains, but the nature of the place is suddenly, terrifyingly clear. You are not just dealing with ghosts. You are dealing with the raw psychic fallout of a dozen lives extinguished in a single, brutal instant. The energy here is not evil. It is tragic, and that makes it infinitely more dangerous. You finally understand. The cook isn't standing there to stop you. He is standing there to see what you will do. You are the anomaly, the first new variable to enter their closed system in decades. Your choice now will not just determine your fate, but it might be the first real event to happen at the 24/7 Grill since that horrible night in 1958. The deafening roar of your engine fills the night as you make your choice. Swerving is not an option. Stopping feels like surrender. You hold your course, but you ease your foot off the accelerator, letting the massive truck slow to a crawl. You're not attacking, but you're not retreating either. You're acknowledging the cook, the warden, meeting his gaze through the large pane of your windshield. As the truck rolls to a gentle stop just feet from where he stands at the edge of the gravel lot, a new, horrifying thought crystallizes in your mind. It's about the bill, the price of the meal, the $1.75 on the chalkboard. You realize now that the special was more than just an anchor. It was a contract. By offering you the meal, Betty wasn't just being a pleasant waitress. She was extending an invitation to join their reality, to become a permanent part of the tableau. The price, $1.75, seems laughably small, a relic of 1958 economics. But the true price, the one the cook's knowing eyes seem to understand, is not paid in cash. The true price of the meal is your future. It's every sunrise you haven't seen yet, every road you haven't driven, every conversation you haven't had. You trade your entire timeline, all the infinite branching possibilities of your life, for a single, looping, unchanging moment in theirs. This concept of a supernatural transaction, a deal with a price far greater than what is immediately apparent, is a cornerstone of American folklore, most famously embodied in the Crossroad Devil myth. The story of blues musician Robert Johnson, who allegedly sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads in Mississippi in exchange for his legendary guitar skills, is the quintessential example. He paid with his eternal soul, an intangible price for a tangible, worldly gain. The diner's bargain is a subtle, more insidious version of this. It doesn't ask for your soul. It asks for your time. And in the end, what is a soul but a lifetime of accumulated moments? The diner just gets to the point and takes the moments themselves. You think of a deeply disturbing documented account from a woman who claimed to have been part of a fringe spiritual group in the 1970s. The group's leader preached that one could achieve a form of immortality by shedding their mortal anxieties. The ritual to do this was simple. You had to give away your most prized material possession not to charity, but to a complete stranger, and ask for nothing in return. The woman gave away a locket that had belonged to her grandmother. She wrote that for weeks after, she felt strangely light and free, but then a horrifying emptiness set in. She had not shed her anxiety. She had shed her connection to her own past. The memory of her grandmother began to fade. She had traded her history for a fleeting sense of peace. She had paid a price she didn't understand until it was too late. Ordering the meatloaf would be the same kind of irreversible transaction. You would be willingly handing over your timeline. The cook standing before you is the silent arbiter of this deal. He is the one who witnesses the contract. His presence confirms that this is not a random haunting, but a place with rules, and the central rule is the transaction. The diner is a business after all. The sign says the 24/7 Grill. It offers a product, a perfect, peaceful moment, an escape from the lonely road and the weary world. But the bill always comes due. Your truck idles, the engine a low rumble, the only sound in the world besides the faint, ever-present jukebox melody. The cook takes a slow, deliberate step forward onto the asphalt of the highway. He raises a hand, not in a threatening gesture, but in a simple, clear signal. Stop. He's not just a warden. He's a gatekeeper. He's standing at the threshold between your world and his. And his silent gaze asks the most important question of all. Are you a customer, or are you just passing through? The terrifying implication is that there might be no middle ground. You have entered their place of business. You have consumed their product, even if it was just a cup of coffee. You have taken up their time, and now you have to settle your account. The question is no longer just about the price of the meal you didn't eat, but about the price of the visit itself. What is the toll for a traveler who has seen the truth behind the counter and now wishes to leave? Do you have to leave something behind, just like in the legend of the Devil's Toll Road? Is that the price of your escape? A memory? A piece of your past? A promise to never speak of what you saw? The cook waits, his expression unchanging, for you to make your offer. The truck idles, a mechanical beast holding its breath. You are locked in a silent standoff with the cook, the guardian of a forgotten moment in time. His gaze is heavy, an ancient weight pressing down on you. You've pieced together the tragedy, you understand the transaction, but you're still a foreign element, an unresolved variable in their closed equation. You have to do something. You can't stay here, caught between the looping past and a future you can no longer reach. Your eyes scan the interior of the diner one last time, past the cook's stoic figure, and you see it. An empty stool at the counter. It's right next to the young man in the leather jacket. It's the stool you were sitting on earlier, but now it looks different. It's not just an empty seat. It seems to pulse with a kind of negative space, an emptiness that it's calling out to be filled. The soft red vinyl seems to shine a little brighter than the others, catching the warm interior light. It's an invitation, a personalized, custom-fitted vacancy in their eternal tableau. The other patrons, the family, the man in the fedora, they are set pieces. They have their spots, their loops. But this stool, this one empty seat, feels dynamic. It feels like it has been waiting for you specifically. This phenomenon, the feeling of a haunted space making room for a new presence, is a recurring and deeply unsettling theme in paranormal lore. There's a well-documented haunting in an old English manor, where visitors frequently report the same strange experience. In the main portrait gallery, there is a long wall of ancestral paintings. People claim that after spending time in the room, they will glance back at the wall and see a blank, empty frame hanging among the portraits, a space that they are certain was not there before. It's described as a deeply personal and terrifying feeling, as if the house itself has recognized them and is offering them a permanent place among its ghostly residents. You think of an urban legend popular among theater troupes, the story of the ghost light. A single, bare bulb is always left burning on the stage of an empty theater overnight. The practical reason is for safety, but the superstition is that the light is for the theater's ghosts, giving them a spotlight to perform their own spectral plays when the living are gone. A darker version of the legend, however, says that if an actor sees their own shadow cast by the ghost light when no one else is around, it's a sign that the theater has chosen them. It's an omen that their final performance will be on that stage and their spirit will be bound to it forever. The empty stool at the counter feels like that shadow. It's a space that has been cleared just for you. The cook takes another step closer. He slowly raises his hand and points, not at you, but at the empty stool visible through the window. The gesture is unmistakable. "That is your place," it says. "That is where you belong now." The choice is being laid out before you in the clearest possible terms. You can accept the invitation, turn off the engine, and walk back into the warm, timeless glow of the diner. You can take your seat, and Betty will bring you a plate of meatloaf that will never be finished. You can become part of the story, another silent, looping figure, forever trapped in the peaceful, agonizing moment of their grand opening. You will be safe. You will be calm. You will never be lonely or tired or hungry again, and you will never, ever leave. This is the true horror of the diner. It's not the crash, not the ghosts, not the frozen time. It's the offer, the temptation, the seductive whisper of permanence in a world that is all about motion and decay. For a long-haul trucker, for a soul defined by the endless lonely road, the promise of a final permanent rest stop is a powerful lure. The question that cuts to the very core of your being is not whether you can escape, but whether deep down a part of you even wants to. Don't you deserve to stop driving? Don't you deserve some peace? The empty stool is more than a threat. It's a temptation. It's a solution. All you have to do is accept. You look from the cook's pointing finger to the empty red vinyl seat, and for a terrifying eternal second, you seriously consider it. The image of the empty stool, the promise of a peaceful, eternal stillness, hangs in your mind for a heartbeat too long. It's a siren song for a weary soul. But then you look past the diner, past the cook's stoic form, and into the vast, dark desert beyond. You see the faint, shimmering light of the real dawn, a pale, hopeful line on the far horizon. It's a different light from the diner's artificial glow. It's a light that promises a new day, a world that moves, a future that is unwritten. And in that moment, you choose the dawn, you choose the road, you choose your own uncertain, finite life. With a surge of adrenaline, you slam your foot not on the brake, but on the accelerator. The truck's engine bellows, a defiant roar of life and forward motion. You swerve the wheel hard, pulling the rig away from the cook and back onto the highway, tires screaming in protest on the asphalt. You don't aim away from the diner, you aim to pass it, to treat it as what it should be, just another building on the side of the road. The cook doesn't move, he doesn't try to stop you. He simply lowers his hand and watches you go, his expression unchanging, as if he knew this would be your choice all along. Perhaps this was the real test, not whether you would surrender, but whether you would fight. As you roar past the front of the diner, the world outside your window becomes a blur of neon and glass. For a split second, you see inside. The family in the booth, the man in the fedora, Betty behind the counter, they all turn their heads in perfect slow motion unison. Their looped movements broken. For the first time, they see you. Their faces are not angry, not sad. They are blank, porcelain masks of pure, unending surprise. You have done the one thing their reality was not programmed for. You have refused the invitation and kept going. You have broken the scene. The moment you pass the edge of the diner's property line, something changes. It's like breaking the surface of the water after being submerged for too long. The air in the cab suddenly feels lighter, fresher. The oppressive, heavy silence is gone, replaced by the familiar whistle of the wind against your mirror. You glance at your dashboard. The digital clock is no longer flashing 12:00. It now reads 5:45 a.m. You lost over 3 hours of your life in that place. A shiver runs down your spine. You check your wrist. The second hand on your analog watch is sweeping smoothly around the dial once more. You fumble for your phone. You press the power button, and the screen flickers to life, the manufacturer's logo glowing brightly. It's working. You are free. This experience, the release from a haunted location, is a common, if less discussed, part of paranormal encounters. People often describe a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a feeling of a weight being lifted. There's a documented account from a team of investigators exploring a notoriously haunted asylum. After a night of intense activity, they decided to end their investigation. As they all walked out the front doors together, they reported feeling a sudden snap, as if an invisible cord connecting them to the building had been broken. One investigator described it as the difference between being in a room with loud, inaudible hum and then having the power suddenly cut off. You don't realize the pressure you were under until it's gone. You think of one last piece of road lore, a story that truckers tell as a tale of hope rather than horror. It's the legend of the Sunrise Mile. They say that on certain cursed stretches of highway, where phantom lights chase you and ghost cars try to erase you, the only way to break the curse is to keep driving, no matter what, until you see the first light of dawn. The legend says that these road spirits are creatures of the night, and the pure, honest light of the rising sun will banish them, returning the road to normal. You didn't just escape the diner. You outran the night that contained it. You risk one last look in your rearview mirror. The diner is still there, but it's shrinking, receding into the distance with every pump of the engine. The powerful neon glow seems weaker now, faded, like a memory losing its color. The further you drive, the more it blends into the growing light of the dawn, till finally, as you crest a small hill, it vanishes from your mirror completely. It's gone. You are alone on the highway again, but the loneliness feels different now. It feels safe. It feels like a victory. The question that will follow you for the rest of your days, the one that will whisper to you on every future late-night drive, is a simple one. What happens to the diner now that you've broken the scene? Did your act of defiance introduce a new variable, a seed of change into their perfect, timeless loop? Or, as the sun rises higher in the sky, does the diner simply fade away, waiting for the next night, the next lonely traveler, and for the jukebox to start playing its one sad song all over again? You don't know the answer, and you know you will never, ever drive this road at night again to find out. The sun is climbing, painting the desert in hues of orange and pink and gold. It's the most beautiful sunrise you have ever seen. You take a deep, shuddering breath, the air clean and sharp in your lungs. You are tired, you have lost time, and you are carrying a story that no one will ever believe. But you are moving forward, and on the long, lonely road of life, that's the only thing that really matters. The story of the 24/7 grill leaves us adrift in a sea of unsettling questions. It serves as a stark, chilling metaphor for being trapped in the past, for the seductive and dangerous nature of nostalgia when it becomes a prison rather than a comfort. We are left to contemplate the fine line between memory and reality, and to wonder about those forgotten places that dot our landscape, those lonely, silent buildings that might just be holding their breath, waiting for the sun to set. The true horror isn't just that such a place could exist, but that a part of every tired, lonely soul might be tempted by its offer of a final, peaceful rest, a permanent escape from the relentless forward march of time. These are the thoughts that linger long after the engine's roar has faded, long after the neon sign has disappeared into the rearview mirror. They become a part of the hum of the road, a quiet, persistent whisper that reminds us that not all who wander are lost, but some are, and they are waiting for company in a place where the special of the day never, ever changes.